This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network.
AvenuePodcast.net.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and I would just like to say thank you to everyone who is here listening right now. Whether this is the first time that you've tuned into this show, or if you've been listening for a long time, I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today, listening to this episode with me. And I think I have a real treat for you guys today. This episode was excellent to record, and I had so much fun talking to my guest. He's a voice actor out of the Texas area. I met him at PTX Con, and he does voiceovers for animation, video games, commercials, all kinds of other stuff. He's worked with Dell and Walmart and Home Depot. He's one of the WatchMojo voice guys. So this was really cool to do. And I'm talking about Patrick Mealey. He was a ton of fun to talk to, and we just kind of went all over the place with this one. You know, we talked about movies, and we talked about music, ranging from opera to metal to, you know, heavy metal to older music even, and we just had a great time. I believe that we are going to be doing this one again, doing something different, in fact, but I think you guys are really in for a real treat today. And for those of you who are here just to listen to the Patrick Mealey episode, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of my other episodes as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.
You're bloody welcome!
You know?
Hey, Dad.
If I get my hand stuck in a pickle jar, I'm straight up bull in a china shop, just swinging around.
Started writing songs when I was about 12 or so.
Seriously?
They're retrofitting me now, and
I'm like, yes, finally.
I also had the opportunity to go train with Hoist Gracie and Dan Severin.
Wow.
I like that. That's different. It stands out.
That day I took my very first bump and it was fun.
There's only one section to go through first.
Yeah.
Toys.
Bro.
I was like, no, man, surely this guy's not booked out that long.
I haven't laughed that hard since I was a little girl.
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
And just a reminder before we get started here, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to iGadap wherever it is you're listening to. Hit that notification bell so you are notified when a new episode drops. Also, make sure that you go out there and rate and review this episode. Tell me what you think of it. And the more people that do that, the more likely I am to be recommended to somebody else. Now, on to the show. All right, everybody. So, I believe we're going to have a great time today. I am very excited to talk to my guest that I have. He is a voiceover artist that I met at PTX Con back in April. He does animation, video games, commercials, all kinds of stuff. He's worked with big names like Dell and Walmart and Home Depot and WatchMojo. He does anime for Crunchyroll and Funimation. And I am talking about Patrick Mealey. Man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for that really lovely introduction.
Yeah. So there was a few on here that I didn't even know that you did, and I love WatchMojo videos.
Yeah.
They are so much fun to watch. How long have you been doing that?
Coming on 2 years now. I got into them because my friend of mine who I coached with for voiceover marketing, Tom Aglio, he's worked with them for about 3 years now when they started implementing a lot more freelance voiceover talent. And I asked him, hey, is it okay if I can get involved there? And he said, yeah, here's the lady's email, send them your stuff and just go from there. And so I did. And then I got in touch with Rebecca Brayton, who's the lady in charge there. And I started working with them. They started sending me scripts, and eventually they started uploading those videos, and it became just a long-term gig. And they send me stuff every Wednesday. I record it, send it off, and then it's always a new video. It's always fun waiting for the next video to come up, because then you can listen to it. And I kind of I forget usually what it was that I said or like the little bits that I threw in there because sometimes I'll do little ad libs every once in a while, like especially if it's a topic I'm very passionate about, like film productions or animation or things like that. So I'll throw little bits in there, and sometimes they'll include them, and it's really, really fun to see them include that. So yeah, no, I especially love covering the animation and film categories because I love talking about movies, and I'm a huge cinephile, and I love animation too. So it's really, really cool. Really, really love working with them, and they're just very nice people in general. And nowadays, whenever people see me, it's funny because like most people recognize me mostly for WatchMojo these days, rather than anime dubbing work. I've noticed like sometimes I'll go to an event and then they'll see me and they'll say like, and they'll hear my voice and they'll be like, "You're the WatchMojo guy, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can you do it?" I'm like, "Okay." Welcome to WatchMojo, and then it just kind of goes from there. That's kind of like my catchphrase.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like everybody has like their own little like way that they say it. Like some people go like "Welcome to WatchMojo," or some people go like "Welcome to WatchMojo." Like I do it like a "Welcome to WatchMojo." Like I change it up too depending on the video. Like if it's a more serious video, like talking about true crime, I'll go like kind of like "Welcome to WatchMojo," like a little bit like quieter, you know, because they want to like you want to like talk about gravity of the situation,
right?
But
has to fit the mood.
Yeah, and no, it's really great acting practice, I think, because you carry a lot of that script and you really want to, and if you are passionate about the details present in the script, especially like when I am, like when I had to do scripts on SpongeBob episodes, I got so passionate about it, like especially when it was talking about the worst episodes, you can hear literal like anger in that script. But actually, no. The biggest one that I did recently was I counted down the absolute worst moments from that new HBO show Velma, which I haven't seen.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've seen clips. I don't want to watch it because I don't want to support it. But just from like everything I had to read, you can hear in the video, like if you look it up, it's top 10 cringiest Velma moments. You can hear how done I am in that video. I'm just like, I hate this so goddamn much. Like, I am literally so done, like talking about how awful this show is, because it's literally that show just spits on the faces of anybody who's a fan of Scooby Doo.
Right.
That show is it's not good. Like, it's just not a good show at all. They ruined every character, especially Velma.
So I actually don't know much about it. I mean, I knew that it came out, but I never took the time to watch it. I'm definitely a Scooby Doo fan. In fact, the other day, me and both of my kids were in there watching the Scooby Doo Where Are You from like the 60s. You know,
the
good stuff.
Yeah, like the OG. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't really know that much about the actual Velma show. I guess I'll have to look it up.
No,
don't do it.
Don't bother. You're gonna be offended.
I'm gonna be mad too, and then I'm gonna go listen to your video, and then we can just be mad together watching that video while I watch that video.
Yeah, no, it's the reason I think it's so bad is because it's really, really trying to be meta, like commentary and all this stuff, and just being like, and the way they write Velma, because it's clearly they wrote it as an insert for Mindy Kaling, who was like writing the show and everything, and the way that they write her, she's just so unlikable. She's volatile. She's just so mean to people, and like there's one particular line. There's one particular line in the story that gets me really angry, and it's when the version of Shaggy in the story, whose name is just Norville. Yeah, it's that bad. He asks like Velma, "Do you know what 420 is?" And then she goes like, "Yeah, it's code for adults that still watch cartoons." And I was like, "Wow, you just offended a whole bunch of people, including me. I hate you." That's what I mean. It feels like I don't think I've ever seen a show that had so much contempt for its audience. So. Yeah,
why even do it then, you know?
Yeah, you know, it clearly was made with an intention to piss people off, like in my opinion. And here's the thing. I know that there was a lot of uproar over the race swap. Like, I had no problem with that. Like, I had no problem with making Velma Indian. I was like, that's cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't like the way the character's written, because the character is just not good. It's so insufferable. Yeah. So that's my overall problem with it. But yeah. Don't watch it. Please don't watch it. I beg you.
I'll go watch something else, I guess.
Yes.
Actually, right now, this is an older show, and it's been done for a while. But a few months ago, the month after I met you, I went to Metrotham Con in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
So I got to meet Matt Ryan while I was there, and he is the guy that plays Constantine in the TV show. It was like one season or two, maybe like 1 or 2 seasons, but then he was on another DC show. And so that's what I've been watching. And I never finished it. It was one of my favorite DC shows. It's Legends of Tomorrow. But I never finished it until I met him. And now I have to go back and finish watching this.
Yeah. It does sound interesting. I don't know. I've never gotten into like the DC shows, mostly because like I don't know, like so many people tell me like go watch WandaVerse, or is that what it's called? WandaVision. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Go watch that and do all this. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've been more focused on watching like I don't know. My current watch list of shows is very interesting because I'm watching a show called Dead Like Me, which my roommate got me into. Yeah, it's a really fun show. And then I'm also watching Pushing Daisies, which is an older show from like 2007, which is a kind of like a dark, very bright comedy kind of thing. It's a very interesting show.
Right.
And then I'm also watching a little animated show called Moral Oral, which it's kind of like a giant fever dream for me as someone who grew up watching those claymation like specials, like Davy and Goliath and all that, and it's kind of like it feels like that, but like if you mixed it with South Park and like a little bit of Family Guy, but also like a bit of a dark kind of like a overall premise, like a sort of psychological drama type thing. But yeah, no, I really have been enjoying that kind of shows. Like that's another thing. I'm a big fan of stop motion animation.
Okay.
Because my dad and I, when I was young, my dad used to show me a lot of those old monster movies from like the 30s onward.
Oh, cool.
And he introduced me to the works of like Ray Harryhausen, who was a well-known stop motion animator who did stuff for like he did like a lot of movies in the 50s, like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Jason and the Argonauts, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and most notably the one that my dad and I watched, Clash of the Titans, the one from the 1980s. And I remember I used to watch the puppets when they would move on screen, and I'm like, wow, why did they move like that? That's so weird, but it's so cool. And then I found out later it was like it was stop motion animation, which basically was like, it was the precursor in a lot of ways. It's what we use. What we use with CG today, people would use with stop motion back then, or any kind of practical effects. And I miss seeing practical effects in movies because they're a lot more realistic, and there's almost something like human about it. Right. Like especially if you've watched John Carpenter's The Thing, which heavily uses practical effects. That movie goes all out with it, and I'm so mad that it didn't win an Oscar. But then again, people were more traumatized by that movie in the 80s because E.T. got released the same weekend.
Such a great movie, though. I love that movie.
It is, and it's so nihilistic. And I mean, like, now I'm curious for you because I know you said you've seen it. Like, what do you think is the best scene in the movie? Because everybody has like their favorite moment.
Oh man, that's hard. Let me think. I guess it would have to be the one where they're trying to find out which one of they're in the group, you know.
Oh, the blood test scene.
Yes, the blood test scene. I mean, that's probably one of the more iconic scenes in the movie. So, you know, that's the one that always sticks out.
Especially when, like, after it's revealed who's the thing, he just morphs into that monster and his body's like contorting. I think for me, it's the defibrillator scene, the chest chomp, because it came so out of nowhere. Yeah. Because they're just trying to revive this guy who just became a thing creature, and then like they do it, and then the chest just opens up and just bites this guy's arms. I'm like, wow, it was gnarly, but it was crazy. And like knowing some of the behind the scenes like difficulty it took to make that scene, because when they first did it, like what they did was they made a complete like dummy of the actor and laid him on the table, and then at one point the one of the actors came in, saw him on the table, and like said, "Oh my God, put some clothes on that guy! Like that's disgusting." And he runs over, and it wasn't until he saw like went right up to the harness that he was like, "It was fake."
Yeah,
it was like it was not real. They made it completely. They created like an exact copy of the actor. It was so interesting, and not only that, but like but when they did the scene where like after the chest chomp happens and like it spews out all this like viscera or whatever, John Carpenter, it was supposed to be one take, but John Carpenter said no, cut it, we got to fix it because it looked like a fountain in Las Vegas, so they had to do a second take, that's the thing. Like when you build something and then you don't get the perfect take, it's like, and then you have to spend hours building it again. It's like, wow, that's got to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah,
like it's got to be.
I definitely agree, but I respect that when people do that, and the fact that they were able to make something look so real. They had so much pride in their work that they're not like good enough. They actually took the time to fix anything that wasn't to their liking.
And the guy who was the special effects person on that film, Rob Bottin, has gone on to do like a lot of great makeup effects to this day. Yeah, like he's worked on. I gotta look this up very quickly. Okay. He's worked on movies such as The Howling. He worked on the movie Legend with Tim Curry. He was on worked on RoboCop, The Fog, Total Recall. I think he also worked on He also worked on Seven and Fight Club with David Fincher, and also he did the wedding episode of Game of Thrones. He did all the makeup for Joffrey.
When
Joffrey died. Yeah, so he was also a protege of Rick Baker, who's considered the king of makeup effects.
Yeah.
Who's obviously, people know Rick Baker, who worked on like American Werewolf in London.
Right.
I mean, that's probably considered his shining moment because people talk about, like, everybody talks about the greatest werewolf transformation scenes, and American Werewolf in London is definitely the one that would be considered like the OG, because it's just so, when you look at it today, you're just like, wow, this is a really great scene.
Yeah.
It holds up. And also Rick Baker was in The Suit when he was in did you ever see that King Kong remake from the 70s, the one with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange?
Maybe. If I did, I don't remember it.
Yeah. Well, that
There's so many back then.
Yeah, that was like, I think, the first remake that they did, and a lot of people look at that one and think, "Oh, okay, that's that version," because like it was kind of like considered underwhelming at the time, but I think it's grown a cult following in the years since then.
Yeah.
But Rick Baker played Kong in The Suit, and they had like a suit that had like all these different kind of facial animatronics and all that, and things like that, and it was really cool, because I think it's like, and it was a big thing because like at the time they were remaking a film from the 30s where you had an ape that was basically only previously existed as a stop motion puppet.
Right.
You never really they didn't really have a something in that age. So I think it was a really great idea. And then of course Peter Jackson came along and made his version of it in 2005, which not a fan, admittedly. I mean, I love Peter Jackson, and I just binged all 3 Lord of the Rings movies at a local theater, so that was an interesting experience.
Back to back?
Well, it was like each one came out like a certain day. Like I think Fellowship came out on Saturday, and then Two Towers on Sunday, and then on Monday it was Return of the King. And
gotcha.
Return of the King is probably the longest movie I've seen in a theater, because it was like 4 hours long, and I haven't. Which, can you imagine just sitting through a movie that's literally more than 4 hours, like with no bathroom breaks at all?
No.
Like apparently people used to do that in like the 50s and 60s, because they made Lawrence of Arabia is considered one of the great epic films, and that film ran for like more than 3 hours, and apparently Steven Spielberg himself saw it in theaters 4 separate times. And back then they used to have intermissions, so you could go to the bathroom. It was kind of like when you go see a play or a musical, and then you go and then you take a break and then go to the bathroom afterwards, and then you come back and watch the rest of the show. But nowadays you don't have that. You came to see a 3-hour movie, you're suffering through it like tough shit, dude. And that's why I think it's better that we have films coming out on Netflix, because then we can actually take breaks.
Right.
Because I know recently that new Scorsese film came out, Killers of the Flower Moon, and everyone's been telling me like it's so good, but it's so long. I think it's like 3 hours and 26 minutes, and I'm like, wow, I would definitely be needing to take breaks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I can't sit there and watch one that long. I'd end up falling asleep. I'm almost 36. I'll be 36 on Sunday, and yeah, I come home and fall asleep on the couch sometimes. So.
I'm 26 and I'm already doing that as well. Like I need like I think I'm legitimately a cat because I sometimes take mid-afternoon naps and they feel so great.
Yeah.
Naps
I like
are
the
nice.
naps. They are.
They're so nice.
I have one of my friends. He's always like, "Well, it's time for my nap," and I'm just like, because he gets them and I don't. So
yeah, it's more rewarding when you've had like a very long day, and then you kind of can go home and like actually let yourself take a nap. Especially recently, like I was just in a musical recently, and like having to go through all the rehearsals and all that, and then after the show comes on, like you come home and you can actually crash from that. It's like the best sleep you ever have because you just had a physically demanding show.
yeah. So I just saw that on your YouTube channel that you are a singer and a musician.
Yep.
What instruments do you play?
Well, I'm primarily a guitarist. Like
Okay.
I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old.
Okay, cool.
I mostly play a lot of like the classic rock songs. I play electric and acoustic guitar. I also play bass. And I also can play mandolin and ukulele. In fact, for the musical I was just in, I played ukulele for a little section of it. So that was interesting. But yeah, singing has kind of been like one that I've explored more in recent years because when I started really exploring it as I got into doing VO, because like I feel like it was a good way to practice using my voice, because I feel like with voiceover in general, and especially for character work, you're really using your instruments. You have to learn how to kind of like use all the different facets of it. So when I went to college, I studied with a vocal coach for a better part of the year, and then I also studied in the choir and learned a lot more about singing because I had done singing pretty much my whole life, but like by the time I was in college, my voice had already changed, and like, you know, I think the last time I'd really done singing was like right before my voice had changed, and I was working on like learning to play guitar. So I basically had to get used to using a new voice. It's like, it's very much like that. But singing is a lot of fun, and I've definitely been trying to explore it more in a professional capacity because I've been trying to write more original songs with different musicians. I mean, luckily there's a lot of people out in the Dallas voiceover community who are also performers and singers and all that. So it's definitely I think easier to explore that kind of idea rather than kind of doing it on your own. I'm trying to get into singing lessons again soon because I want to study more operatic style of singing. Because
cool.
Because I love all genres of music, but listening to opera is so. People say like, oh, it's just like old people music. Like, no, it's very powerful when you listen to it, and when you hear them hitting these high notes that are well executed, there's something really, really strong about it. And I noticed when you listen to it's funny, like comparing say a high note from a rock song, like let's say a female singer hits a high note in a hard rock song, like say Pat Benatar, but then you listen to an opera singer hitting a high note in an aria, it's a lot more powerful, especially because when you get into that high place, you kind of enter into a second voice that's almost like deeper than your natural one. Like one of the best examples is recently I was listening to a little song from the musical Carousel called If I Loved You, and it was a cover with Sierra Boggess, who's well known for playing Christine in the Phantom Revivals. It's hearing her go into her high notes is so amazing. But yeah, if you wanted this whole conversation to be about like just opera and musical theater, then I'll go on for hours talking about that because I'm also a musical theater nut and a music nut in general. So yeah,
I love all things music. I talk to people about it all the time on here. You know, it is a passion of mine. It is a release. I play a bunch of different instruments, You know, I love all forms of music. I listen to opera. Luciano Pavarotti, can't get much better than that.
And Maria Callas, of
yeah,
course, was
yeah.
she's kind of considered the OG opera singer, like, because I think that she had a very distinctive singing ability that was very different from other sopranos, because I think she was, I don't know how to describe her style, but she was like considered the bel canto technique. And not only that, but like her voice was, I think she was a soprano sfagato, because she could sing mezzo arias but also sing the coloratura arias. So I think she had a very wide style, but she also had a voice that many people considered very different, because it wasn't necessarily a beautiful voice, but it wasn't an ugly voice either. It was a very distinctive sound, and I think that she knew how to use it.
Yeah.
But sadly, it also declined very heavily in her later life. There's a whole documentary about how her singing had kind of declined in the 70s, and I think that was due to like health issues among other things. But yeah, also talking about classic rock bands and everything, like I'm a huge fan of Pink Floyd. That's like my favorite band. I also love Led Zeppelin and Rush, Genesis, Jethro Tull, the Beatles, and all that stuff. Like lately I've been listening to a lot of like the underrated prog bands, like particularly well, obviously Genesis. People know Genesis much more because of the era with Phil Collins, like obviously Land of Confusion, Misunderstanding, Turn It On Again. But people forget the Peter Gabriel era of like the early 70s, when they were very much a progressive rock band. Yeah. With like the Hammond organ, they had Mellotrons, they used they sang songs that were very mystical and all that. Like, obviously, I mean, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is considered like the best. And my dad often confuses this, because he believes that Salisbury Hill was a Genesis song, and I'm like, no, that was just Peter Gabriel on his own, Dad. And he's like, oh, okay. You didn't know.
Gotta set him right. Yeah, no, I mean, so when it comes to music, I'm a pastor's son, so I grew up with a lot of Southern gospel music in my life, you know, and then, you know, I kind of found all of it on my own, and I started branching out more in like my 20s and stuff like that to like different classic rock bands and things, and then it kind of morphed. And I still listen to all different genres of music. However, my biggest one now would probably be metal. I'm I love metal music. I have an appreciation for it because I know how hard it is to do those things with their voice, you know. One that I'm really into right now is Spirit Box, because she can go from a singing voice to her scream within one note, and it's like, how does she do this? And it's just, she makes it sound so beautiful. So I've been really, I'm kind of a weird fan of metal, because I love the OG ones. Like I love Black Sabbath and Ozzy and Iron Maiden and all that stuff. Some modern ones are fine, but it's kind of hard for me, because like growling vocals, I like them in moderation. Yeah. Like I'm not a big fan of Cannibal Corpse or Suicide Silence, because I don't know, like hearing growling and screaming for like 5 minutes can really it can kind of exhaust you after a while. So I like songs where they switch into it maybe during the chorus and then go back to clean vocals, you know, kind of like that. Like I think Bring Me the Horizon would probably be a example of one that I like. Although Bring Me the Horizon is interesting, because I found out that a lot of people hated their early discography when they were deathcore, but then when they started moving into more of the alternative metal, where they used clean vocals and harsh vocals in moderation, people like gave more praise, and that's where I was like, yeah, I agree with that, because I think that when you have to hear death vocals so much, it gets overwhelming. Yeah, your eardrums, like, but it's a great technique, very much. I mean, especially like when you, because there's a big art to doing it without hurting yourself. Because I remember Melissa Cross is a vocal coach who teaches a lot of people how to do the screams, and she had to because she would have these singers that would come to them and they were like destroying their voices, they were coughing up blood, and it was there's an art to finding a way to create that same because a lot of those at the time, before they figured out how to really do it properly, they were doing it like using anger and rage to kind of create that growl. But Melissa Cross showed them how to do it, being able to use it kind of like an actor does, where you can fake the rage and do it safely. You know, it's very much how a musical theater singer
learns how to belt, because there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and if you do it the wrong way, it's going to hurt.
Right.
But if you do it the right way, you're going to be fine. And it's a really great technique, especially, well, it's more funny because I went and saw Beetlejuice on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Ago. Yeah, I saw Alex Brightman on Broadway, and he has a really interesting technique where he can the way he created the Beetlejuice voice was by using a technique called false chords, where you basically can switch in and out of it and create sort of a little distortion thing. So, and he has a really interesting thing where he can go in and out of it and like it doesn't, and he can sing in it too. So it's like, he can he could talk in the Beetlejuice voice for like several hours, and then he can just come right out of it and he'll be fine.
That's cool.
And seeing him do that on Broadway, especially like when the show opened, because I remember like I was nervous that when I came back and saw it on Broadway that I wasn't going to see Alex that day, because sometimes you have understudies come in to cover for people, but when I found out it was him, I was so happy. And then he came on stage and he did the holy crap, and then everybody like just applauded when he came on, and it was so funny.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love that show.
So there's a band that I want to recommend to you after hearing what you said there, and they're another amazing band, and most of it is melodics. There's not a lot of hard, heavy in it, and it's called Sleep Token. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but you should definitely listen to it. There's a lot of, even if you listen to like the lyrics, there's a lot behind his lyrics. And it almost has like a cult following almost, because their music is so unique. And you've got the people, the gatekeepers are like, that's not metal, but it is, and I think you would like them. You should definitely try them out.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Are you going to go see the new Beetlejuice movie?
Maybe. Is it coming through Dallas, like the national tour?
No, like the movie.
Yeah, the new movie. Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I just saw the new Wednesday Netflix show with Jenna Ortega, and I was like, when I heard she was going to be in the new Beetlejuice as the daughter of Winona Ryder, I'm like, oh, by the way, am I allowed to cuss on this show?
You're totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Fuck yeah, I'm going to see this. Like, because Jenna Ortega is one of the best actresses I've seen in modern day, and watching her in Wednesday, I really feel like she's on the rise to do some amazing stuff. Like, it's funny because my roommate didn't like the new Wednesday show and said to me, like, when you go watch it, like, I mean, tell me what you think, because I didn't really like it. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I went and watched it, and I was like, I liked it. I think it was really good. I think that there were some things where I was like, that's a little strange, but ultimately I think it was a really good adaptation of the Addams Family character. Yeah. And she did tell me afterwards she felt that the portrayal of Wednesday was that she was really unlikable, and I'm like, well, that's kind of how she's supposed to be, right? Like, yeah. She's the one thing that I'd say I didn't really understand was that in the beginning of the series she does seem to have this bit of tension between her parents, like as she's getting dropped off at the academy, Nevermore, and I'm like, I wonder why that is. Like, I wish we could have explored that more, like maybe discovered why she has a bit of this sort of resentment going for her parents, because maybe we could have like delved into it and it could have given another layer to the character. But I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll explore it second season and see what happens. But overall, great show. I am excited that they're bringing back Beetlejuice, especially with Michael Keaton. Yeah. I am glad they're also not bringing back Jeffrey Jones. Thank God. I hate that guy.
Oh, man. Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about Jenna Ortega and playing Wednesday, the way I always took it is everything about them was almost like opposite day. Yeah. Their way that they show love, their way that they do anything is they're an odd family, and so I always took that scene as just her. That's how they showed love to their children. Almost, I don't know, but yeah, hopefully they will. Now that you're saying that, hopefully maybe they will,
explore that
some more, because I love anything that has to do with like a psychological side to it. What was the psychology behind why they do this? I'm a big wrestling fan. And that's one of my favorite things to do when it comes to wrestling is, why are they doing this? Find the psychology behind what they're doing. How is this going to further the storyline?
Right. And I think also the conflicts in the story were very interesting. Also, interesting factoid is that Christina Ricci is on the show as the main villain, and she was the original Wednesday in the 90s films like Addams Family Values. And I will say the cast that they got to play Gomez and Morticia was actually really interesting, because seeing Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia was something I never thought I'd see, but I'm kind of glad I did.
Right, yeah. She fit the part very well. And I know there were some people that had issues with the who played Gomez, but
Luis
if you look,
Guzman,
if you look back at like the old cartoons, that's what they were going for, and he looks so much like Gomez from that. You know? And so I was like, I don't have a problem with this, you know. I think he did an okay job playing the part.
I think also, like, you know, Gomez is kind of a character that, well, it's never, because he is a Latino from what I understand.
Yeah.
And they never really had that in the original 60s television series. But I think they started really incorporating that because Raul Julia played him like that in the films. So they kind of kept that, because I think when Raul Julia passed away, they really wanted to keep that kind of thing, because he came along and really changed it. And, you know, he was a wonderful performer. And I think, you know, Luis Guzman played him very well that way. And obviously Brad Oscar, who played him in the animated films, did him that really well that way.
Right.
I think Nathan Lane played him that way in the Broadway show, which I just saw recently. I listened to recently because my roommate got me into it. But yeah, no, it's interesting. But yeah, no, I think Jenna really captured Wednesday and gave a lot of nuance to this character. And I think also having Tim Burton directing it and kind of like having him direct a majority of the episodes really plays it, because it really feels like that this is right up his alley. This is the kind of thing that he can definitely do, because that's Tim Burton style. I mean, although recently I was watching some old Tim Burton films, because I found out that he used to work at Disney before he became a director, like, on his own. And one of his first films that he did was a little film called Vincent, which was like a film about a little boy named Vincent who wants to be like Vincent Price, and he has this whole world of terrors and everything that he creates. And then he made another short film called Frankenweenie, which he later remade into a stop motion film in 2010. Tim Burton, for me, is one of my favorite directors, even though he has had some misfires when it comes to some of his later work, like especially the Dumbo movie. And I know a lot of people aren't fans of Planet of the Apes and all that, or the Alice in Wonderland remake. I wasn't really a fan of the Alice in Wonderland remake, but he still is a very distinctive filmmaker. And I think he creates a style that really works, you know, the dark, quirky, but also very, very lovely style. You know, I think that's why I love a lot of his movies. I mean, my dad did not know that Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the Pee Wee Herman movie, was directed by him.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, no,
really?
He directed it, and it was Danny Elfman's first ever job as a film composer, because Paul Rubens was a huge Oingo Boingo fan, which was Danny Elfman's band at the time, and said, "Hey, I don't know if this is something you'd like to try, but I want you to compose the music for this movie." And he was like, okay. And then he tried it, and then it became a lifelong thing. Now Danny Elfman's a well-known film composer because of that, and started the big collaborations with him with Tim Burton on Batman, and obviously Nightmare Before Christmas, and Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice. All of those movies he composed.
Okay.
So I'm very interested in that.
One of my favorite musical is a Tim Burton movie. So Sweeney Todd. And it was funny. My wife is actually the one who showed me that movie. I had never watched it until I think might have been 2019 was the first time that I watched that movie. And I was like, how did I miss this? So good. I love that movie.
Well, it was originally a Broadway musical in the 70s by Stephen Sondheim, and then Tim Burton brought it into film in 2007. And I think it's funny because there are some people who I have actually spoken to some actors who dislike the film adaptation because they think that it cut a few things, and they also didn't really like Johnny Depp's singing voice. Although I can look past that, because I think that as a whole, the acting really is what stands out the most. And there were some changes, I think, because they removed the first song, The Ballad of Sweeney Todd, which is like the opening song. And, you know, but still, it's a really good film adaptation of it. And obviously the the revival that just happened on Broadway with Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford and now Sutton Foster has been a really, really great success and has kind of brought it back into the public consciousness. And actually, pretty soon they're doing an adaptation. They're doing a performance of it later on this summer at the Rowlett Theater Company here in Dallas, and I'm going to audition for it because I really want to be in Sweeney Todd. That's like
cool.
I want to be one of the characters. Like I really want to play Anthony or Toby.
Okay.
I feel like those two are Toby especially because he's a little cinnamon roll and he goes through so much shit in that movie.
Yeah.
That poor boy like had to eat pies and discovered that they were humans. That movie was also really bloody, I remember.
It was.
Like just the way, just like the amount of blood. I'm like, geez, how much? I didn't think that much blood could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't know a lot about anatomy, but I don't think that would happen. I don't know. It feels like a Tarantino movie. It feels like Kill Bill.
Well, since what is it, like 7, 8 liters of blood in a person or something like that? So that was way more than that. Yeah.
But I don't think it spurts out like a fountain though. Because that happens in the first Kill Bill movie when Oranishi takes out one of the members of the Yakuza. He just starts, like, blood just goes everywhere. And I'm like, I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. I gotta ask my dad because he's a mortician. So maybe I'll ask him, does that actually happen?
Oh gosh. Wow. Yeah. I can't, I don't know. Now you got me thinking, I didn't ever really think that because I've always seen those movies, where they're sitting there and it's almost like it goes with their heartbeat. So it's squirting it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, this went gory for a minute.
This is what you get when you get two horror movie people in a call together. We just go on talking about like the gnarliest stuff.
Oh yeah. I've had a few horror writers on the show and everything. So it's really fun to get to talk to them about, their process for coming up with these things and, and then getting you on here and we're being able to talk about, my favorite musical movie, Sweeney Todd. And you said that you're a horror fan as well. I mean, we've already talked about, The Thing and all this. So yeah, it's that's why I love doing this show.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I thought when we came on that it was going to be mostly about voice acting, but it ends up becoming this, which is fine. I'm sure we'll get some voice acting stuff thrown in there, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, we'll just jump right into that and everything.
Okay.
How did you get started doing this?
I started when I was in college. Because I had the interest in just doing voice acting probably since I was really young. Because I knew that like I used to watch like a lot of those behind the scenes things on Nickelodeon. Like they used to have like stuff where you could see the making of like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, and you'd see like them in the booth recording, and I'm like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do it at the time. And this is like back in the early 2000s. So the online voiceover scene was kind of starting to bloom a bit more.
Yeah.
And really started taking off in like the early mid 2010s. And so I went to college. I went to college in 2016, and while I was there, they had a radio broadcasting thing that you could do like for a little side thing. So I got involved there. I started doing some radio broadcasting and all that, and kind of also they made like little audio dramas that we would get to produce and act in. So I got to work in that, and it was really, really fun. But then around the second year, sophomore year, the urge to go online just kept growing and growing. So I said, I got to do something. So I got myself a microphone. I made a profile on some of the casting like voice actor websites, and then I just started auditioning for things.
Yeah.
And I started meeting other actors. I started really auditioning for indie games and animations and things like that. And then during the pandemic, because that was around the time I graduated and we were all stuck at home with nothing to do. So I just figured, well, I'm going to try this out and see what happens. So I started going full speed ahead. It started working out, and I got, and then I started like really booking a lot of commercial work and different kinds of gigs online. And then ultimately around 2022, I made the trek into doing anime. with a little show called Ame Warrior at the Borderline, which was done by NYAV Post. And then around the same time, a lot of things began moving back to in-person with studios. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go make the trek to Texas and try and get involved here. So I packed up all my stuff. I moved to Dallas, Texas around 2022. Been living here ever since, and I got involved in the anime dubbing sphere. And last summer, I was fortunate enough to book my first leading role at Crunchyroll with a show called My Unique Skill Makes Me OP Even at Level 1, which was directed by Mike McFarland. It was a really fun show, and yeah, it's been a really fun journey. It has been slow on the anime dubbing front lately because I think that it's just with all the shows that are coming out, it's kind of like a tight turnaround time, and lately they have wanted to bring in a lot of newer talent. So I'm kind of like, I guess like they've already used me, so they're probably like using different people right now. But I'm still optimistic, that things will pick up eventually.
Yeah. So something else that I read on your IMDb, you've actually done a little work when it comes to directing now too.
More casting actually.
More casting, okay.
I used to do when I was doing a lot of indie titles, like independent titles. I would get a lot of I would get in touch with like independent creators, usually game devs, and if they needed to bring on new talent for their projects, I would say, hey, I do some casting. Would you like me to help you with casting? And then they'd say, yeah, sure. So I helped them with bringing on a lot of actors into their productions and that kind of thing. And it's been a while since I've done it because I've mostly have just been focusing on acting for the last few years. But it would be something I'd love to get back into, especially professionally. If I could do, especially casting. Casting is fun because you get to bring. It's interesting when you find that right voice for a character, and you're just like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the character. And then you can just bring them right in. But obviously, it's always up to the client, too, what they want, because you got to really respect what fits their vision,
Right.
So, yeah, that's a little thing right there.
Well, I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of casting myself here pretty soon.
Okay.
The comic book company that was sitting right next to me at PTX, I'm their head of marketing and social media. Well, I'm also going to be in charge of doing an audio series for them here soon. So I'm going to be, trying that hat on for a minute too. So
okay, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another thing, a couple things that I saw on here that I wanted to ask you about, because not only do you do voiceover stuff, but you do for like cartoons and video games, but you also do narration and you do audiobooks. And I think I saw a post that you did recently talking about doing audiobooks. And I just kind of wanted to ask you, I know it's a very strenuous, or it's a very time consuming thing to do whenever you're doing audiobooks and things. What is it like comparing that to doing any other type of work?
It's definitely difficult because I think that there's a lot of commitment, and obviously you need to, depending on the type of book, you really need to, especially if it's a fiction book, you need to really, really get into the different kinds of voices and stuff like that for characters, because like when you're doing an audiobook, there's a level of certain subtlety where you have to, especially when you're a sort of male identifying actor playing other characters, you have to sort of create subtlety to show that this is a different character, that this is a woman or something. Like sometimes you'll lighten your voice a little bit, or you'll take on a certain different kind of texture to convey age or otherworldliness. Yeah. So yeah, no, I've been it's a very difficult thing, but it is very rewarding. And not to mention, it's also definitely pays the bills, because I think that when you get the payout for like how many hours of narration you do, it really it adds up, and like you get like a lot of cool stuff from it. So I can't complain.
What's the longest book that you've done so far?
Oh God. I did a book called, I'm working on a book series called The Burning, which is a post-apocalyptic story.
Okay.
And I did the first book right before my Dallas move, and then I did the second book. And I remember the second book had it was 24 chapters, and one chapter in particular was like 50 pages long. And I remember I had to take breaks before coming back to it because it just took so long to get done, because I was so perfectionist with the making sure it was done properly. But then when it was done and I got it up, it was very rewarding. But yeah, it is definitely, it is a difficult process, but it's also the most rewarding when you can put up with that kind of thing. And I often tell people like who want to do voiceover full time, I think that you should try audiobooks at the very least. I mean, it's not for everybody. I think that it's not a complete, like, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I do it because I think that it's something that I enjoy, and I'm able to kind of do it in a long time. But for others, it can definitely be much more difficult. So I definitely would say, if you're going to do audiobooks, like, make sure that it's something that you have the time to do and it's something that you can enjoy. And also definitely be mindful of like the deadlines and the editing too, because you will, more than often than not, you're going to be the one doing the post-production on the book. So you got to do all the mastering and everything to get it to ACX standard, which is ACX is the site that connects to Audible. So
okay. Yeah, I've done a little bit of narrating and voice acting when it comes to, I have friends that write stories and they put them up on YouTube and things like that. So I've done some of the editing side of that as well. And it's funny because, I'll be sitting there doing it and I'll get tongue tied and I have to do it 2 or 3 times. I'm like, what are they trying to get me to say here? Because my brain just goes into this mode to where you're just like, it almost doesn't make sense to you. And so you have to like stop and, try to get out what they're actually trying to say there. But it's fun though. I enjoy it as well.
It is.
Especially the narration side. I will say that's probably one of my favorite things that I've done is, doing narrating anything. So
yeah, I enjoy it very much too. I think that it's a very, very fun process. And not to mention, it's really cool when you get to take on a character like that, or you get to take on a project that is very, very character heavy and very deep, because it's, especially if it's a long running thing. That's really, really cool. But yeah, I love that. I think it's really, really great. But yeah, that's all what it is about audiobooks.
So whenever you're doing this, you can't just go blindly in with your voice. You kind of have to prepare yourself. Do you have a ritual that you do whenever you're about to do, an audiobook or just a voiceover or something?
Well, especially for character work, I do have I do vocal warm-ups, because being a singer, I kind of know how to I do kind of the lip trills, and then I'll sing a little bit before I go in. Sometimes, it's funny. I've been trying to take in different kind of acting modalities to be able to kind of enter a character's emotional state beforehand. Because I've been looking into studying classes on different acting methods like Meisner and Stanislavski and all that to kind of find your character's center and everything, and then kind of bring it into them when you do it. It's different with voiceover, I think, because when you're doing voiceover, it's very spontaneous. It's not like when you're on stage or you're in a film where you have kind of the time to do all the preparation and create the character, write a journal and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I think that, it's interesting because I saw a video recently talking about the concept of method acting, and obviously it could be a wonderful thing, and it can create some great performances, but there can also be method actors that are total douchebags and will just act like, because I feel like those kind of method actors are using it more for attention rather than practicality.
I can see that.
Because obviously there's method actors that I love, like Daniel Day-Lewis, who's noted for who's known for getting into character and trying to be, trying to really become a person. But the thing is, I think for him, he does it on his own, and he's just doing it because he wants to make the production better and enhance it. But then you look at actors like Jared Leto, who just will send dead rats and and a pig to their co-stars because because it's gonna get you into the part, and it's yay, that's or morally ethical, sending things like that. Because, it's a weird thing because the two other Jokers the two other actors that have played the Jokers have gotten Academy Awards and they used method acting, but the thing is they were using it more for themselves, not with other people.
Right.
You know, like Heath Ledger really brought a lot to it, and so did Joaquin Phoenix, but they weren't like acting like assholes on set or freaking people out. They were just doing their own homework and kind of just like doing their own thing. But like, yeah, it's really, really, I don't know. There's a whole thing about the concept of method acting is a very deep topic, and I'd honestly love to do like a video essay on it, because I feel like there's a right kind of way about it, an ethical way, and then there's like what we call the bad way, which is like when actors will just behave erratically and be awful for the sake of the part, which there's a really great documentary about it, because there's a film that Jim Carrey was in called Man on the Moon, where he played anti-comedian Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
And he like apparently got so into this character. He was like holding up production, causing property damage, alienating the cast and everything. And it was like, and he claims that he was possessed by Andy Kaufman or whatever. I don't know. There's something about that really doesn't sit right with me, you know?
Yeah. Well, I actually, so I did an episode recently and we talked about that movie. And I heard that he tried to get Jerry Lawler to actually body slam him in that movie.
Really?
Yeah. And he was like, no. And the director was like, dude, you can't do that. You know, he was like, no, I don't want a stunt double. I want do it to me. You know, they had to like talk him out of this stuff because he was doing crazy things like that.
Well, and also he would come on stage, he would come on set like dressed as his alter ego, Tony Clifton, which was like Andy Kaufman's like alter ego that he would do like performances in, and then like he'd claim it was another person. And then you know, he would do like the foreign man character. And like I feel like in the case of Man on the Moon, Jim was just not really, I don't know why he was committing so much to it, because I don't think that he did it to make the performance better. I think he was just doing it. I don't know if he was doing it for attention or trying to make it seem like he was a deep, complex actor, but I don't know. I feel like if you're going to put that much effort into this, why not put the effort into creating or telling the story of Andy Kaufman in a more authentic way? Because Andy Kaufman was already a very interesting fella from what my father has told me.
Yes.
Like my dad's told me a lot of stories about how, because my dad used to watch him on Taxi, and he said that he was just noted for, because the whole thing with Andy Kaufman, I from what I understand, is that he was not a typical comedian where like he'd tell a joke and you'd laugh. It's be like he would torture the audience and make them hate him, right?
Yeah.
Like he would stand on the stage, do nothing, and then like he'd turn on a record player and like occasionally lip sync to the record. It was like that was his thing, because he wanted to make the audience hate him.
Yeah.
But I think that was kind of his thing, because there are a lot of comedians these days that are like that, where you want them to hate you, you know?
Right.
Like there's comedians today who I've seen that are just awful. Like I think, what's his name? Tom Green was probably one of the most infamous examples of an anti-comedian, because have you ever did you see his film?
Which one? The
Freddie one, which I don't
Freddie
want to
say. Freddie got fingered. Yeah.
I didn't want to say that title because I'm trying to I don't want your podcast to get taken down. But no, I saw it in college, and I remember thinking to myself, why did we allow this guy why did we give this guy money to make a movie?
Well, you saw what he did with the cow too, didn't you, on live television? He nursed from a cow on live television.
Why are you doing this to
It was
us?
almost like, dude, you don't have to do this crazy stuff, you know, find a different way. You know, there are so many other ways you can make people laugh. But I feel like that wasn't what his thing was. He wanted people to cringe. He wanted people to get mad at him and call him gross and everything, which I'm like, I mean, there's a right way to do that though. I mean, hell, I grew up watching Nickelodeon where
being gross and all that was like kind of the name of the game. Like I used to play with Nickelodeon Gak. I used to watch episodes where people got slimed. And I used to watch all that and like all that stuff, and they was all about being gross and everything, but there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. And he was doing it the absolute wrong way.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't even like see it as a failure because he came to the Razzies with a red carpet and like accepted it with pride. And I'm just sitting here like, what is with this man? This man is deranged. Oh my God, I've seen some movies that have hurt. And well, okay, the movies that actually hurt me though, like the movies that I would say I absolutely abhor are any of the Friedberg and Seltzer films, like Epic Movie, Date Movie, Disaster Movie, Meet the Spartans. Probably Disaster Movie is my most hated out of all those films.
Well, they were all inspired to be done because of the Scary Movie franchise, so.
Well, I think the first Scary Movie film, because that was done by the Wayans brothers, that one had a little bit more creativity behind it because the Wayans brothers actually know how to write comedy. I've seen, even though they sometimes don't, a lot of times they do. Yeah. And I think, but when Friedberg and Seltzer took over, they just went into this whole thing where it's like every scene is like random and it's like slapstick and like kind of like cartoon physics in live action. It's really weird. Right. And Disaster Movie is probably the one that I hate the most because that one is the one where I literally felt so much pain watching it because it literally no. I'm sorry. Okay, you know what? I'm going to describe it like this. I would rather tie my testicles to a car or a battery and turn it on than watch that movie because it is that painful. I have not watched a movie that made me feel so empty inside and so disgusted and enraged because of how unfunny it is in a long time. Yeah. And not only that, like there's two particular scenes where I literally felt myself giving up. One is where they had like Beowulf coming in because I didn't even know there was a Beowulf film that they parodied. That's even weirder. Yeah. And then also this ugly Kung Fu Panda like guy in a suit comes in. I'm like, ugh, it's so bad. It's just so bad, man. Like, and some of the movies they're parodying too. It's like, what do these have to do with disaster films? Right. Like Juno, Kung Fu Panda, Alvin and the Chipmunks. What does this have to do with anything? Nothing. It doesn't have to do with anything.
They were running out of ideas, so they had to throw something in there.
Yeah, no, like I guess they were just going off what was released at the time and what was like financially successful. Yeah, definitely. But I don't even know. I didn't even know there was a Beowulf film, to be honest, until I saw that scene, and I'm like, oh, that's a movie. Okay,
it was animated, I think, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember watching that. It came out in like 2009 or so, maybe 2010, something like that. I remember it, but I don't remember anything about the actual movie.
The only thing I remember partially of it, because I did see a clip from it, because I saw a clip of the scene where he fights Grendel, which is obviously the Grendel thing is the biggest iconic thing in literature. Mm-hmm. And like he basically has no clothes on when he's fighting Grendel, and I'm like, what is the point of this? Is this supposed to be like erotic? Is this supposed to be like show how amazing he is? Because I'm not liking this. This is making me uncomfortable, dude. Right. But like also the way Grendel's design, admittedly, I didn't find Grendel's design as I didn't find it as intimidating as the other iterations of Grendel that I've seen in like artwork and all that, because Grendel's supposed to be this terrifying lumbering creature, like and I think they just made him look really, really deformed and all that. I'm like, I don't know. That's not really scary or like, or like intimidating. Cause like, it just looks like more like he looks like a sickly guy. And I'm like, that's not really interesting to me. I don't know. Like I've seen different adaptations. I've read different things of Beowulf and they never really give a full description of Grendel, but the biggest thing is that he's supposed to be this very intimidating monster, and then like when Beowulf kills him, then Grendel's mother comes back for revenge, and then he defeats Grendel's mother, and then it completes a whole cycle. Gotcha. Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Funny enough, the first time I ever heard about Grendel was in Beowulf was because of a song by a band called Marillion of the same name called Grendel, and it was like an 18-minute progressive rock song. And most people confuse it as a Genesis song because the lead singer of Marillion, first lead singer, sounds so much like Peter Gabriel. It's like it's scary. Like I've never heard someone have a completely identical voice to somebody else, but it really did, and it was crazy. But it was amazing. It was awesome.
So I haven't actually gotten a lot into that, so I'm gonna have to, after hearing you talk about it, I'm going to have to look this up.
Yeah, no, if you do listen to Marillion, you can find it on like YouTube. There's a really great performance that they did in the 80s at the Hammersmith. I highly recommend checking that out because it's a really great live performance. But yeah, no, it's a really, 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 really great great song. And if you're a fan of like, that kind of style of music, I think that you'll really find it right up your alley.
So we're kind of coming up close to a close on here. And I've got just a few more things that I wanted to ask you about.
Sure.
Do you have any goals set for this next year?
I really do want to get back into the anime dubbings realm as much as I can because, I really had a great taste of it last year. And, this year was very much a dry spell when it came to that. And I really do hope that there will be more opportunities. I'd love to be in more bigger series. And I'd love to, because I've noticed like when we were met at PTX Con, I feel like I was surrounded by talent that had a lot more iconic characters in their repertoire, because the thing I realized when you go to a convention is that the characters that you show, you really want to make sure that people are going to know what they're from. And some people will know the more smaller titles, but they know the big ones. Like they know Blue Lock, they know Kaiju number 8, they know My Hero Academia. Like I want to be involved in something like that.
Yeah.
Because I know that those are big series, and I think that I can definitely play a character in those series. And not only that, like I definitely want to try and get more better representation how in Los Angeles and even out here in Texas, because I feel like I've been always, a lot of the work I have gotten for like stuff like this has always been on my own, and I really want to work on things that are with an agent that can kind of open the doors to different kinds of projects, because I feel like a lot of them do get access to really cool projects, and I really would be, and I really think I would thrive in that kind of environment. In terms of other goals, I mean, I pretty much just kind of named them all off. I'd also want to do more video game work out in Los Angeles. Like I'm really, really want to voice more in Genshin Impact as a playable. I voiced in Genshin as like multiple NPCs, but I really want to voice in it as a named role, or like a named playable character, or even like Honkai Star Rail, that new Hoyo game, Zenless Zero, I believe it's called. I'd really love to voice in that, but also would love to release more original music, because I've been writing songs lately, and I have them all written. I just need to get off my butt and actually go record them. But yeah, no, that's kind of most of the goals I want to do.
Okay. So there was something that I found on your website, and it had stuff in there that I would have never even thought to do. And I'm talking about your Raw Home Studio sample.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, so this is what the room sounds like. This is what it sounds like as a level 1 yell, a level 2 yell, and all, this is what it would be like. And you had all these different scenarios in there. Is there like a checklist for this, or was this just something that you're like, let's do this?
So making the Raw Home Studio sample was interesting because Jun Yoon, who's another voice actor, he's a pretty prominent one. He gave us all like when the pandemic started, because we started all using home studios a little bit more.
Right.
He created a little template that he could give us, where you could write a sort of script, because you want clients who can do remote recording. They want you to have a decent home setup. So when you show that sample, and you can show the different levels of treatment by yelling and whispering and turning the gain up, turning the gain down, it really, really works with that. And I think he had I think it might still be on his website. If you go to Jun's website, like he had like a little area where you can he gives you a sort of script that you can use to kind of create like a little Raw Home Studio template of your own. And that was the one that I referenced when I was making mine. So I highly recommend checking that out as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it was just interesting. I was like, man, some of this stuff I would have never even thought to add in there, especially like, this is the way the room sounds. That was the one that I was like, I never thought of that, but it's important to have that. because, you know, you don't want somebody who's going to have a lot of background noise.
Yeah, yeah.
In there. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, the picture that you posted of you doing the audiobook, is that your recording studio?
Yep, it's a Studio Bricks 1 Plus VO edition, which I got in the weirdest way because so originally for the last few years before I moved, I was recording kind of like this PVC fort that I crafted with PVC pipe and vocal booth to go blankets, and it worked really well. But I needed something a little bit more powerful.
Right.
Because I'm living in an apartment now, and you know, sometimes you have like cars going by outside and all that stuff. So I got super lucky because there was a guy out in Temple, Texas. He was a pastor and he had one, and I was like, and I went and looked at it, and he told me that he bought it because he wanted to do audiobook work, but then it never went through. So he was just had it sitting in his like little in his office for like a year and a half now, and he's like, do you want it? I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So I bought it. I brought it back home, and I set it up, and I've been using it ever since. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really great tool. It's helped me a lot. The only complaint I have is that it gets very stuffy in there very quickly, so I can start sweating in there in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, so you gotta I gotta bring a fan in there to kind of cool off a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I do this in my garage. So I've got one of those quiet fans over here, but I found ways to make it to where it doesn't sound as echoey and stuff like that. But I still have to worry about, like, my neighbor drives like a diesel truck. And when he comes home, he backs in the driveway, you know, and so it picks up. I'm using a Blue Yeti microphone, you know, and it picks up that stuff. Or when a train goes by, I have to hit the mute button while I'm talking to people because it picks all of that stuff up. So I totally understand needing that, you know, that space to where you can block all of that stuff out. And I bet doing it with the sound blankets and stuff can get really stuffy as well.
Not really, surprisingly, because I feel like there's a little bit of the way I had my booth set up. I think the way that I like had it was like I had a little bit of a crevice for some cool air to kind of go in, and I think I was recording in the basement back in my old house, and I think like the basement's kind of tends to be the coolest area of the house.
Right. Yeah.
So so I think I was able to kind of like I was basically able to work with it, and I didn't have any issues. But yeah, like I don't know, like I think if I had kept the PVC booth, it would have been probably a little bit more. It wouldn't have been as stuffy, but it probably would have been more difficult to record because then I'd have like to hear, I'd have to hear like cars going out outside, or I'd have to hear all this other stuff. So yeah, no, I think it probably would have been a little bit more difficult, I think. But yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to bring up before I get you off of here?
Not that anything that's under NDA, because I do have a few things coming up that are under NDA, but when they do come up, though, I will be sure to try and post about them.
Okay. All right. And where can people follow you so they can see this stuff when you are able to post about it?
So if you guys want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Patrick Mealey VO. That's PatrickMealeyVO on Twitter and Instagram. And then you can also check out my website at patrickmealey.net. And yeah, that's just be sure to check by, and you can hear some of my stuff. And yeah, I hope to see you guys.
All right, man. Well, it's been a blast talking to you tonight. This hour has flown by for me. So, and maybe I can get you to come back on here because I feel like we have a lot that we could still talk about.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more. Like, maybe we could do like a thing where we watch like certain movies and we can go on for hours talking about like how good they were, or how bad they were, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that would definitely be a lot of fun.
All right, man. Well, I will talk to you a few minutes after I end this recording, but we're going to say bye on here for now.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Hey, listener. This is a not paid for product placement for the Zero to Hero podcast.
What do you mean?
If you
not
definitely
paid?
like what you're listening to now, come on over to the Zero to Hero podcast.
Lights on. Just
Anywhere you want to be able to find your podcast at,
trash bills
like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, which is still a little weird.
For the next 2 weeks.
come on over and enjoy yourself and listen to Billy and myself bicker, argue, and, well, fight about a lot of things, as we are the bulk and skull of podcasting.
How the hell am I
Good
going to
luck out there, and welcome back to the show.
Hello there. While I have your attention, let me introduce myself. My name is Colby Cheese. I'm a content creator at TikTok with over 1.6 million followers, husband, comic book collector, and avid wrestling fan. And if you're listening to this, that means you must be a wrestling fan too. We will be discussing all of the wrestling from Monday Night Raw to Friday Night SmackDown, those AEW Wednesdays to those PLEs on the weekends that we have to wake up at 11 a.m. for. And that's only at Wrestling with Colby Cheese.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Patrick today. I know that I really enjoyed recording it with him, and I can't wait to get him back on the show to talk about maybe some movies or something again. I just think we would have a really good time. He was an easy conversation. I didn't realize how far we were into the episode. By the time that we got to the end, it felt like it had only been about 10-15 minutes since we had started talking. So I look forward to having him on again. Next week's episode will be with another person that I met at PTXCon. He is known to many as the artist of the Pro Wrestling Stars. He is a comic book artist, an editorial cartoonist, and a literary illustrator. His name is Jesus Pedroza, but most people know him as the cartoon. We're going to have a really good conversation. I've already recorded it, and I really enjoyed talking to him. We talk about wrestling. We talk about comic books. We talk about influences. We talk about all kinds of stuff, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy that one. So make sure that you tune back in next week so you can hear that episode as well. But while you're waiting, make sure that you check out my podcast networks, the OIW Podcast Network, the Zio to Hero Podcast Network, and the Avenue Podcast Network. All these places you can find really cool conversations and different types of podcasts that may differ from my own, but you're bound to find something that you will enjoy on one of these networks. So go and check them out while you're waiting on another episode of iGadapt to drop. So, still waiting to get the website up for the merch, but you can send me something on social media or you can send me an email and just tell me what you want and we'll get it shipped out to you. And for those of you who are like, well, how do I follow you on social media? I have a link in the show notes here to my link tree, and it has everywhere that you can find me on social media. You can also find my email address on there. It is giveadadatapodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. If you have, anything that you want to send me, whether it be, a suggestion for the show, a dad joke that you want me to put on my dad joke of the week, whatever it is, send me a line, and I would love to hear from you guys. So at the end of every episode, you hear the song start when I tell you guys I love you and goodbye. That is D-Cure. D-Cure created that song for me to place on this show, and it has been awesome having it. I love hearing it every time, and if you guys like the way that his music sounds, make sure that you go out there and follow him. He is an excellent artist, and he is an extremely funny guy. So go and follow his stuff. I have a link to him in my show notes. Also, make sure that you're following everything that's with Original Geek. As you're listening to this, I have just went to Nerds Assemble Con. As I'm recording it, I'm leaving tomorrow for it. So I know it's going to be a fun time, and I hope that a bunch of you came out and saw us there. Maybe grabbed a comic book, grabbed some merch, talk to us, get some autographs, whatever you want to do from the artists that we're going to have with us. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I believe the next thing that we have coming up is August 17th at Treat Your Shelf. It is a bookstore in Mountain Home, Arkansas. We're doing a signing and a panel there, so make sure that you come out if you're in the area to be a part of that and to hear what we have going on. We've got more live stuff that is going to be coming up. As you know, I've got the one in October. I believe that the Original Geek is also going to be at SpaCon in Hot Springs in September. So we've got some really cool stuff coming up. So make sure that you stay tuned to hear all the details for that stuff. Make sure that you check out my brother networks that are part of If You Give a Dad a Brand. That is If You Give a Dad a Cosplay and If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel. Those are ran by two of my really good friends that I do some voiceover work for. and they're part of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, and they're just wonderful guys. One of them teaches you how to do cosplays. Another one teaches you how to easily run and edit a YouTube channel. It is Cosplay Dude 637 for the If You Give a Dad a Cosplay, and it's Ty Tiger from If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel. As you know, I've had both of these guys on my show, and they're really awesome. So just go out there and check their stuff. So while you're listening to this right now, please do me a big favor. Go out there and rate and review this podcast. The more people that go out there and rate and review this show, the more likely I am to be recommended to more people. And I would love it to see this podcast grow. So go out there, rate and review it. I've noticed I've had a few more that have shown up on there. And for those who have done it, I thank you so much. You are awesome. And I appreciate you so much. Also, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast if this is your first time listening, or if you just haven't done that yet. Make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you're notified when a new episode of this show drops. So, we've come to the end of another episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and it is time for Billy's favorite part of the show, and that is Dad Joke of the Week. Seems like I only get sick on weekdays. I must have a weekend immune system.
Bro.
All right. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, the world blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what, I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.
Wait. Can you put a timer up here?